And now, Lifestyles Unlimited presents the Real Estate Investor Radio Show. Over the next hour, we unfold your map to financial freedom. You'll learn how to retire through investing in single-family and multifamily real estate. You'll learn how to create cash flow and build wealth so you can have the time and money to live the lifestyle you want.
Welcome to the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show. My name is Al Gordon, and as always, we're working on your financial freedom. And you'll notice on today's show, I've got somebody with me that's helping me with this journey. Her name is Kendra. I just got a phone call from the county that I just used to live in, which is Kendall County. So I'm going to give you my explanation right up front, Kendra, so that you don't get upset with me. And we
just started, Al. We just started.
I know, we just started. And I haven't even told them that we're going to be working on their financial freedom. Can you believe that?
Oh, the nerve. The nerve.
It's terrible. But hey, you know what? I want to point out something to our audience that is brand new. Something that we're doing in Lifestyles Unlimited that we really haven't done before, and that is a visual podcast. And I want to thank you right up front for being my guinea pig to help me figure out if this works. Yeah, there we go. So at the end of the day, we're going to help somebody understand something that they don't understand about changing their life, the trajectory of their life, and how real estate can fit in. And what I love about you, Kendall, is that you at one time, I did it again, didn't I? I did it. Oh, it's in my brain now. It's in my brain.
Don't worry, okay. Kendra.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say Kendra, Kendra, Kendra 3 times. And I'm actually going to look at your photo on my video screen because guess what's there? Your name. And it doesn't say Kendall. It says Kendra. So I'm going to get that right for the rest of the episode. Are you okay with that? Me?
I'm perfect. I just don't want to confuse the people. You can call me anything you want. Just don't call me late for dinner. But just,
okay.
You were going to confuse the people by calling me Kendall.
That's true. And we don't want to do that because at the end of the day, we want them to understand that you had a dilemma in your life. And that dilemma kind of evolved around your financial situation in life. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, for sure.
And did you identify that maybe you had a problem at that time?
Yeah, I mean, I just knew we probably needed to do something, right? Like, I knew we needed to change, right? Yeah. So to your point, yeah, we knew that there needed to be something better.
Okay. So we've probably lost most of the audience because I can't get your name right. But what I want to understand is that you were doing everything that society taught you to do. And even though it's very clear that I'm a little older than you are, I'm guessing you heard the same things that I heard as a child when you were a child, which are go to school, get good grades, get into a good college, get some more good grades. If you don't go to college, go to a good trade school, but it's all about getting a job and working and working and working and saving your way to retirement, right? I mean, Is that what you heard?
Yeah, no, everything that I would read as far as like how to grow wealth would talk about compounding interest, right? Which is a thing, but you have to be able to contribute to the 401k to get the compound to make things start steamrolling, right? I was never fortunate to work in these big companies to have that long-standing career where I was just consistently contributing to our 401k. It didn't, and I'll get into my story a little bit later, but like we were traveling anyways, my husband's from South America. I never had that opportunity to really have that stability to really flex those muscles. And it just wasn't applicable to my job. It really wasn't. Like I didn't have the option.
So what were you doing for a career back then?
Yeah, so I study physical therapy. I'm a physical therapist assistant by trade, and not by trade. I have a whole degree about that. So,
Okay.
so I study physical therapy, and then whenever we moved to Houston, I got a master's in business, and I decided to switch from physical therapy into medical sales. And I did a parallel product that coupled physical therapy very well because for me, when we talk about medical sales. You can work with the doctors and not have so much patient interaction, or you can be very clinical, which is what I preferred because I actually like people, right? Which is why I like you, which is why I'm here because I like you too, Al. But anyway, so
That's
I
good to
wanted
know.
something. Yeah, I wanted something patient facing and something that I knew is physical therapy. So I kind of transitioned to there. Um, but before then, living in Oklahoma City, my husband is from South America, and so his we lived in South America for a year, and then we went to Oklahoma City and then I finished my physical therapy degree. Then we moved to Houston, and he worked in oil and gas. I worked in healthcare, right, and then I switched over to medical sales, and then it was during that time, we were living the life in downtown Houston, right? And oil and gas, you were told not to buy anything, right? Which that was the worst piece of advice I could have ever been given because oh my gosh, that we would have made a killing off that. Anyways, but my husband was the one, working for this top tier company that had a 401k that had, all the benefits, right? Meanwhile, I was doing contract. Meanwhile, I was working for a small medical sales company that are excuse me, durable medical sales company that they had like a 2% match on a 401k. So, anyways, but I worked it for them for 7 years and then I had babies. And then after we had babies, I said, hey, honey, like I want to be closer to family. So we relocated to Dallas. And so there again, another job change. So then I had this 401k that I contributed to I think it was 7 years because I did it for 7 years. And it was just like I said before, I heard so much about like how to grow, to save your way to retirement, but I knew it was consistently didn't match my reality of the ability to consistently contribute to it. They didn't match up.
So when you were saving your way to retirement and putting money into that 401k, how knowledgeable were you about the things you were invested in? I mean, were you reading the prospectuses? Were you paying attention? I'm thinking that's a big no.
That's the first time I've heard that word for perspective is, but
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I mean, I would open up the portfolio, right? Because I remember it was, managed by Fidelity or whoever. I remember looking at it and I remember seeing small cap bonds, large cash. I don't know. No, to answer your question, no. I knew
Okay.
the categories. I could probably Google which one was high risk versus low risk, but no, I didn't have a lot of knowledge of why this versus that. Not at all.
Okay. And the reason I'm bringing that up is when we come back in the next segment, I'm going to talk to you in front of the audience
Hmm.
about what you're doing now, which is totally different from what you used to do, which is, well, it's changing your life. You and I both know that story.
Yeah.
And soon the audience will know that story. So, right after this, we'll be right back. Stick around. Welcome back to the show. So, if you're just joining me, I've got Kendra on with me today. Now, if you missed the first segment, what you understand or what don't understand is that I did a really good job of butchering Kendra's name in the first segment, and I've got all kinds of explanations as to why I butchered her name, but the reality of it is I still did it. I got to own it. So Kendra, do you forgive me?
I do. I took a moment, I had a cup of coffee, and I forgive you.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Now, one of the things I really want to point out to the audience is that you're a proud member of Lifestyles Unlimited, just like I am. Is
Hmm.
that a true statement?
Yes, it is.
And when did you have the epiphany that you needed to become a member of Lifestyles Unlimited? When did this all unfold for you?
Oh man. So let me preface this. So we knew about Lifestyles Unlimited probably in 2014, 15 because my
Really?
in-laws were pig members. I think
Oh,
yeah, they knew about Lifestyles Unlimited as well. And so anyways, they told us about it and it was always like, "Oh, you got to go check them out" because we were in Houston, they were in Dallas. And so anyways, they were always on our mind. I'd watched about 1,000 free workshops, right? And then finally, whenever we had kids is when I just said we got to make a change. If we don't start investing, we're going to spend this at Disney World. Like we're gonna recklessly spend our money. So there's no reason why we shouldn't be doing something else with this particular set of money that we knew that we could invest. And that's when I was like, we're going to a 2 day, we're gonna sign up. And then I think right after that was Expo.
So what year was that you did all this in?
My son was born in 21, so it was in 22. It was like November. He was born in June. I want to say I want to say it was I want to say it was November 21 when we joined, and then we went to Expo 22.
So you joined in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah, it was right after. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I remember I was
Okay.
pregnant, or
Yeah,
I
that's right.
was.
Because you're in Texas, so the pandemic ended early for Texans, but it kept going on for like another year and a half in other
Yeah,
parts of the
I
country.
was pregnant with my second baby actually because we had joined we had joined with my first son, and then I was second. I would remember being like 8 months pregnant with my girl,
So
at
you're
Expo.
8 months pregnant
Yeah,
on the tail end of a pandemic, and,
yeah,
and you think this is a good idea to join
yeah.
Lifestyles Unlimited.
Yeah, hell or high water, here we come, right?
Well,
Yeah,
what convinced you? What I mean, after
yeah,
all, you told me in 2014 you knew about Lifestyles Unlimited. You knew members of your family that were members that were
yeah,
trying to get you to come on board, but you were resistant. So
yeah.
so was it just the clarity of being 8 months pregnant that caused this to happen, or what? What?
Yeah, it was the lack of it was the fatigue, the lack of it. Yeah, no, everything that comes with a third trimester delusional thing, it was not that. I can tell you that. But the main difference was, so at that we had bought with my in-laws, we had bought two properties before, right? And then at that time, after those two properties, my in-laws started using words that we didn't know, like hard money, right? We didn't know about that. Also, they started throwing out figures that was half of what we originally spent conventionally financing our original. And whenever we really wanted to dig into that with them, they were like, no, you're not educated. You're not educated to what we're doing. And if we're going to be partners, you need to subscribe to the same mentality. Right. And so we were like kind of taken back by that because it was always a yes, from them as far as like kind of piggybacking off of them. Right. And so anyways, whenever I had the moment of we got to get our stuff in gear, it was really the realization of investing in our future, right? Like I wasn't sure if we were going to be a millionaire in 2 years, or if I could retire in 2 years, right? That I didn't know if that was my exact goal, but I knew that I needed to create a change because that's something that I've always been a subscriber of. Change doesn't happen overnight. It never does, right? It's a pattern of habits that we build. And I saw what we bought our first properties in 2017, and here we were at 2022. And so I had saw, the cash flow coming into that, the work that was involved in that, and the equity built in that. And I was just like, we need to build that on our own in our own name because up until that point we were just partners with my in-laws. But then also we need to amplify it a little bit and more so that way, because I am constantly traveling, because I can't sit there and subscribe to this traditional way of saving to retirement. I need to take more control of that. And that's for me is what was empowering was the initiative. And also to your question, you asked me why didn't I just sign up then. I had to know if it was a scam or not. I completely was craving validation. And like for me, if you give me a free workshop, I'm gonna be like, meh. And then I came from sales. I'm naturally a skeptic. And then finally I went to my first 2 day, and a man in combat boots who was just crazy as, you
Oh,
know what,
David.
in my mind I was like,
Yeah.
there's no way this guy's a millionaire. And half the people in the room too, if I'm being very honest, I was like, there's nobody here that, like, no way, there's no way, I just don't believe it,
I
right?
thought I thought he was the warm up act. That's literally what
I
I
know.
thought.
I know.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I was like, he can't even wear a decent shirt. He has a skull on it. Like, what the heck? Like, anyways, so it just took a lot of mental validation. But for me, the biggest thing was really just kind of seeing the success of my in-laws, and then really like coming to the meetups and seeing everybody else they're not on payroll, they're just members, right? It was the people that speak up for them. It was almost like their Google review, but it was live in person, right? And that's for me what gave me validation that this is real. We can take it into our own hands and get after it.
What did you learn from going through the initial training that all of us as Lifestyles Unlimited members go through, that 16-hour class? Was there something in that training that really stood out that made you just go, okay, we have found what we're looking for?
Oh man. So I'm a slow processor, right? So I had to attend a couple, right? And then I actually had to, onboard member services, what we'll get into, because I wanted to get paid to attend them more so it could really absorb in. But the main thing that was really just concrete in my mind, that I may not understand these numbers, right? But I know that this is a format. Math is math. It always is. It always takes me a little bit to get it right. As long as I plug in the numbers, as long as I practice the numbers, I will eventually learn how to analyze those numbers in the concept to a deal. But the point blank is, if you don't learn how to make money in your sleep, you will work the rest of your life. I wrote that down, and that is so clear, crystal clear in my mind. Every day I tell myself, if you're not working to give yourself money when you sleep, you'll continuously work all your life. That is continuously in my brain. And so that's a very what I call, like, that's a very vague statement, but it's also a sentence of affirmation. And then I always repeat after that, what specific actions I'm going to do. And that's what I loved about the 2 day, is it not only gave you that concept of, okay, we need to change the mentality, but also it gave me a step by step of what we need to do to get there. It was all just one in one bundle. I didn't have to sit there and, Google, does this particular method of finance work for wholesale? Because we don't do wholesale. You know what I mean? Or you know what I mean? Like, we weren't doing
Yeah.
Airbnb. So I didn't so everything was just all in one. And that's something that I find a complete asset with Lifestyles Unlimited, is we stay in our lane. And I really liked that.
Yeah, our lane is definitely the residential arm of real estate in the single family space, and also the residential arm of commercial real estate, which is multifamily. So
Hmm.
both of these are taught to us as members. We're taught how to buy single family. We're taught how to buy multifamily. So which path did you choose, or did you choose both?
Hmm. Well, since we were already in single family, and also I knew that single family was more involved, right? So I told my husband, we need to first get into a few passives, because we just had our second kid, like, and so I was like, I don't know how much time we're gonna have, right? And my husband was very supportive and kind of letting me take more of a driver's seat. And so we got into two passive deals within I want to say, the first 8 months of being a member.
Okay, so you got right into multifamily. So
Yep.
here's the thought. We have to go to break. But
Okay.
in the next segment, I'm going to get into some of those investments that you've done, because I think the listeners really need to understand who Kendra really is. Stick around. Welcome back to the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show. My name is Al Gordon. I'm joined by Kendra, and together we're working on your financial freedom. And we're doing so by getting inside of Kendra's brain. I really want you to understand what makes her tick, because when you become a member of Lifestyles Unlimited, you're going to get an opportunity to maybe meet Kendra. Depending on where you live
Hmm.
in the country, depending on what events you partake in, you'll have a chance to meet Kendra, just like I had the chance to meet Kendra. Now, there's a neat thing about Kendra that we kind of alluded to earlier in the show, but now I think we ought to just pull the curtain off the whole thing and explain to the audience that you're actually a part of a bigger team called the Lifestyles
Hmm.
Unlimited team, right?
Yeah, member services.
So you were doing medical sales, but now you're doing member services.
Hmm.
That's kind of a big shift. What caused that shift? Why walk away from medical sales into doing member services? I guess we had to tell the audience what you kind of do at member services, and why it's more appealing than medical sales.
Yeah, yeah. So what I loved about medical sales is I liked being a consultant. I liked being a part of somebody's team to let them know how whatever the product I had, how it's going to benefit them, and to really analyze their needs, right? To see, do those things line up, right? And in member services, it's very much the same thing. Member services a lot of times is dealing with somebody that just did a 2 day, or maybe they want to sign up for a 2 day, or maybe they want to find out a little bit more about Lifestyles Unlimited and what makes us tick, right? And so it's a part of my job to kind of explain all those things. For folks that are looking to upgrade, it's all about the conversation conversation of, am I ready? Is this really for me? What are my expectations? And is this going to help me get to those expectations? Right. I really like having that solidified before, like, having that person go forward, because false expectations for me are they're sure to fail. And I always want people to be the most successful version of themselves. I'm a true optimist. I like rooting for folks. I like developing that plan of action and taking ambiguous concepts and making it into a plan to where it's really accomplishable to a person. So that's a lot of what I do in member services, honestly, whether it be, as simple as a renewal call to take renewals, or just to really answer questions about 2 days. So when you ask why did I was a member first. I always like to say that because people forget we are members first. You have to be a member and you have to be an investor to be in member services. The reason why I switched was complete self-interest, full disclosure. All right. So we moved from Houston to Dallas. I just had my second baby. Second baby is special needs. She has Angelman syndrome, and I just wanted to be home. And medical sales, especially relocating to a new city, there was a lot of networking to be done to get that new position. And I just said, you know what? This is mom phase. I need to be home more. And also, I need to learn more about this real estate gig. So, where can I do that? Both of them enter an email from Lifestyles Unlimited that said, we're hiring. And little did I know that, like, it would have such a parallel from that consulting role that I took with medical sales. I actually love it for that reason. The first thing I was told is, hey, we're not hard sales. We're not here to just take people's money. And I was like, I love you for that. Because that was the impression also that I got whenever I went to a 2 day. They weren't trying to sell me a membership. They were trying to sell me on the idea that I really can change my future if I just change my mind first and start putting actions into play. And so, did I answer your question? I
You
kind of
did.
blabbed.
Yeah, no, you nailed it. I mean, it's what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to tie in that experience to the fact that you're also an active real estate investor.
Hmm.
So, unlike maybe other organizations that just hire people to be face people, and I think you pointed out very, very succinctly, in order to be on the Lifestyles Unlimited team, you have to be an active investor. In
Hmm.
order to be an active investor, you have to pay attention to the education. You have to take advantage of mentoring, whether you
Hmm.
use dedicated mentoring services that Lifestyles Unlimited provides, or you go and find your own. You have to have mentoring. And you accomplished all that stuff. You're an accomplished real estate investor. And I think we need to point out for the audience that maybe there was a change in pay scale going from medical sales to what you do now. And I'm thinking that real estate may have provided an opportunity for you to make that transition
Hmm.
seamlessly because now you've got passive income coming in that you're not actually going out and trading time for money for, right?
Right. No, it definitely cushioned the fall. I'll say that, right? Because I haven't not completely replaced my income, right, on that. But I'm working on it. I am certainly working on it. And you'd be surprised how much faster you are when you have a group of accountability partners. And that's something that I didn't even expect. Like every time we would have a 2 day, the first question Fisher would ask us is, has anybody bought any properties? Right. And so even me and my teammate Manuel in DFW, we're always asking, like, hey, what kind of deals are you seeing on the market? Right. People to consistently have those conversations with. So to your question, yes, I did. Like, it definitely cushioned the fall. Have I replaced my income? Absolutely not. Right. And so with inflation, there's always something else to factor in, right? But had I not started, I would have never had a cushion to fall on. That I think that is such the principle to always take away is, if you never start, you'll never know what you have because you never let it grow. You never watered the seed.
Yeah. Let me ask you a very, very personal question. And if
Yeah.
you don't want to answer it, just say, hey, I don't want to answer it. But where did the seed capital come from to buy into the real estate? I mean, did you go in the backyard and dig up bottles of gold, or maybe did you cash in that 401k? Where did the money come
Yeah.
from?
Yeah, so I personally did to make the decision for the two passive deals. I decided to just rip off the band-aid and cash out my 401ks that I wasn't using. And what's funny is I actually had this concept in my mind, like, okay, I think it was Was it 40 or 50 in those? It could have been 60. It's been somewhere between 40 and 60. I can't remember the exact number, but I remember there was like maybe 3 or 4 years that they was just sitting there. And I remember thinking like, oh, I'm just going to watch this compound and grow. And it was nothing. Like I think over the course of like how many, whatever years, it was nothing. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna transfer this. I'm gonna do something else with it. And so I just ripped the band-aid off. So I did cash in my 401ks. And then if I'm being honest, my dad passed away, and he had invested in land that he developed, not as like a land developer. He made like a farmland out of it. Like I forgot what you call that, but he made like livestock out of it. So it appreciated the land. He sold that, and then we inherited that. So there was a little bit that I had there to invest as well. And then my husband is an engineer, and so he definitely came forward with money that he had saved. He's definitely the saver, and so thank God for that. So when you talk about capital, that's full disclosure how I came into it. Um, it was definitely ripping off that band-aid of the 401k.
So what are you thinking about buying next? Are you in the hunt for another property?
Yes. Yes.
Right.
So yeah. So how I always like to explain my mind because you, it could be a scary idea, but anyways, roll with me on this, right? So I always talk
Yeah.
about when we talk about a hold plan, right? For me, when I'm looking at, we're in 4 passive deals and we're also in 4 single families, right? Single family cash flow is not exactly where I want it to be, but the equity is, right? And so we just wrapped up my last single family that I bought. We're in April. It was closed in September. It was closed in September. Yeah. And so I'm really looking for a duplex, and then or another single family. Right now I have about 6 months of where I'm just doing we're kind of like not it's not seasoning the money, but I'm just letting it settle. I'm just trying to get my bearings back and figuring out what I'm gonna do. And I am actively looking for my next deal, yes, to answer your question.
Man, I love hearing that.
Yeah.
I love how you have a plan. I love how you know exactly what you're trying to accomplish, and I love your laser focus attention to getting it done. And I know you're going to be successful because you're a Lifestyles Unlimited member. Heck, you're
Thank you.
properly trained to do this right, and you help other members along the way. So let's do this, Kendra. We're getting ready to go to another break, and when we come back in the next segment, we're going to get more into how they can make money. Stick around.
All right.
Welcome back to the show. So Kendra, I kind of teased the audience and I said we're gonna teach them how to make a bunch of money. And I think if we're gonna do that effectively, because as Lifestyles Unlimited members, we understand that if you don't do things effectively, they just don't work. So
Right.
they teach us how to do things effectively. So if we're going to help the audience do this effectively, I think we probably ought to talk to them about how to become a member because I mean that's really where it starts. It's where it started for me. It's where it started for you. It's where it started for the thousands of members of Lifestyles Unlimited. So since you're a part of the member services team, I think you got some insight on this, don't you?
No, yeah, 100%. So,
Okay.
depending on where you're at in your Lifestyles Unlimited knowledge, right? If you're completely new, know nothing about it, you're just now hearing this podcast, the best thing for you to do is go to lifestylesunlimited.com, right? And it'll kind of walk you through. Take a free workshop. A free workshop is a very good summary of the principles that we teach, right? After that, then your next step is to join the membership. So usually there's a discount that you can grab online, and it's a full year membership. That full year of membership, you're getting countless intensive opportunity. When we say intensives, we have 2-day seminars where literally we outline from research to acquisition to sell to evaluation, everything about single family. And then the same thing within multifamily and passive investments, right? If you don't know what those terms mean, don't worry about it. You're going to learn it, all right? But you got to establish mentality and your foundations of education first. And that's what the intensive is for, right? I call it the great neutralizer. Everybody goes through that first. Every single person, right? So, and if you know about Lifestyles Unlimited, you're just looking for validation. Anyways, same thing. You go to an intensive, right? Also, a part of the membership, you're going to get ambassador meetups depending on where you live, right? They're not everywhere across the US, but it's an invaluable asset. The reason why I say that is because they are non-partial, non-paid members that their job is just to help people network, right? So you're getting countless seminars. You're also getting free investor journey nights, which is another networking opportunity, but also a great panel discussion where you get to learn from people that are actually doing what we teach. Then after that, there is a lot of education online, tons of education online that you're going to get to complement the education that you're going to get in the intensives. And whether you're in Hawaii or Chicago or in Dallas, or maybe you work nights, right, and you can't attend an intensive, we have online as well as in person. We have recorded versus just non-recorded sessions. There's no excuses in terms of like time management, because we really do have you covered in that, is what I'm saying. So yeah, so did I answer your question?
Totally. Yeah.
Awesome.
Then I've got a follow on for you. Want to hear it?
Yeah.
What about the concern that people have about living in a certain part of the country and not being able to invest there? I mean, what I'm getting at is we have a lot of members that live
Hmm.
in the West Coast, and with the methodology that we teach, and the fact that the West Coast markets are really out of balance because the values are very high, but what they can charge for rent is very low. They have rent control. They have all these artificial problems which disrupt the real estate markets. The people on the West Coast can't make what we teach work in the West Coast, but it certainly works in the markets that we invest in. So the question I have is, how difficult do you think it is for somebody to live on the West Coast to invest, say, in your backyard in the Dallas Fort Worth area?
Oh gosh, you know what? Before Lifestyles Unlimited, I would say that like, oh my gosh, that's impossible, right? But then you'd be so surprised how many people. I talked to a member that lived in China, and they were successfully managing their single family here in Texas, right?
Did
And
you say
so
China,
yes,
not
I did.
Chinatown,
Yes. The country, China. Yes.
the country?
Yes,
Okay,
the
the
country
one that
of.
Trump's having some issues with right now, right? That one.
Yeah, so I talked to somebody in China, and they were actually telling me that, anyways, I'm going to restate myself. They actually manage their family portfolio from China. And so also, when it comes to like people in California, people in Hawaii, they're in a completely different time zone. I talk to them every day and they do it. And it's like it's nothing. And so the good thing about Lifestyles Unlimited is our concepts really do work in a variety of areas. The only thing that changes are laws, right? Your laws and limitations of where you live. And that's something that you got to put some legwork in. If you're looking for an easy way to get rich, this ain't it, right? It's just point blank simple. I'm not here to sell you a dream. That's what I loved about Lifestyles Unlimited, is Dale's not here to tell you what you want to hear, right? It's he's here to tell you what you need to hear, so that way you can make the right changes for your future, right? And so yeah, no, to that person that is nervous about investing remotely, you have a right to be nervous, right? Because it's going to be new. But you don't go to your first day of work and not feel some sort of anxiety. It's normal. What do you do to relieve that? You start taking steps. You start talking to people. With your membership, you get a vendor portal. You get a vendor portal. You can talk to contractors. You can talk to banks. You can talk to other members, even, right? Even though you don't have mentorship at the entry level of membership, but that doesn't stop people from investing. Fear stops people from investing, not anything else. So, anyways, I think I detoured of your question, but I hope I answered it.
Yeah, I think you super answered it, especially when you got into that concept of fear, because I think that's one of those things that holds people back from achieving what they can really achieve, because they've heard all these arguments about how real estate is too risky. Real estate takes too much time. Real estate requires you to have $1 million to make $1 million. And those are fears that we have. But one of the things that you and I have learned after becoming members of Lifestyles Unlimited is those are just fearful concepts, that those things
Mhm.
aren't really real. but in our mind we've made them real. They're just really false beliefs. So when you get involved with this culture that we have at Lifestyles Unlimited, and you start meeting other people like you pointed out, those fears melt away, do they not?
Yeah, well, you definitely feel better about getting into it. And I always like to say, fears can be very is everything easy? No. Is something going to happen? Yes. For every problem, there's only one problem. There's a lot of solutions to that problem. Let that just like settle in, right? Whenever you're overcoming that fear, because that fear will stop you and you will think of everything that can go wrong with that house. And you know what? There's a cost associated with those problems. You're absolutely right. But does your budget still cover it? When you fix everything, does the number still work? Do it. That's how you
Yeah,
get over
you,
it.
you just yeah, totally. And you just hit on something that I like to do on this radio show a lot. I like to hit them with the numbers. And I know people like want to hear me describe the property. Oh, it's a pretty greenhouse with a tin roof. That's not what we're interested in. We're interested in the numbers, right? I
Hmm.
mean, that's what
Hmm.
Lifestyles Unlimited teaches us. Dig into the financials first before you even waste your time going to look at something you may not buy. Dig into the financials, understand the fundamentals. And if
Hmm.
the fundamentals make sense based on what your goals and objectives are, pull the trigger, right?
Right. Exactly. And to tell you a funny story about that. So
Yeah.
my last property that I bought, I purchased two properties so far in Denison, Texas. I was in Colombia with my husband when I got the property blast. Saw it. The initial numbers looked really good. So I just, I did what I do. The realtor sent me more information and I started running my own figures. You always run your own figures. I'm a big fan of, I would say crutches aren't meant to stand on. You have to learn how to fly yourself, right? And just because you fly yourself doesn't mean you don't need anybody else, but you have to learn to fish. You can't just be, given it. Anyways, generational mentality, right? Like, anyways. So, on that note, so I was actually in Colombia when I actually bought that property, and I came back for a 2 day, walked the property as well with the contractor, and the contractor was like, "Oh no, there's no way this type of property should never be bought." Right? It's too far gone. It's actually my best property. And it really
Really?
is. Like, yeah, in terms of cash flow, it was just so funny because I was just like, well, I know you can do it. You guys do this all the time. Show me, whatever. He was like, we'll do it. But my goodness, he just had nothing really nice to say about it. And I was like, because it stunk. I took my nieces
Yeah.
there. Actually, I have a picture of them going like this through the property.
Smelled like money, didn't it?
Yeah, it sure did. In the backyard, you couldn't see that there was a shed in the backyard. The backyard was horrible.
Oh, is it like
Horrible.
overgrown and totally?
I mean, the trees were taller than the house. It was a
Oh,
thing. It
wow.
was it was horrible. But anyways,
Trees rubbing on the house?
yeah,
Yeah.
whoever it was that needed to turn on the electricity wouldn't go back there until after the yard work because he didn't want to get fleas all over him. It was horrible. It was
Wow.
bad.
You
Yeah.
bought a nasty, dirty thing, but I bet you it's really beautiful today. And somebody's living in it and they're
Yeah.
calling it home and they're willing to give you a third of what they make every month in appreciation for you allowing them to live there, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We got a great tenant. That's something within Lifestyles Unlimited, the education to how to screen a tenant. That's something that's made a game changer in how we in the quality of tenants that we place in our houses, and that's a night and day difference, man. In the calls that
Yeah.
you get to how they everything.
Well, you got to follow fair housing. You got to do the right thing, but
Right.
you got to promote your business and you got to manage and operate your business correctly. And Lifestyles Unlimited is the place where you and I both turned to get the answers to the questions that we have, to get the solutions that we needed so that we could change the fundamentals of our life. You're changing your life. I've changed my life. The members of Lifestyles Unlimited are doing the exact same thing. And Kendra, I want to thank you so much for being on today's show. You've made a difference in somebody's life. And if you want to do what Kendra's doing, you want to do what I'm doing, go to lifestylesunlimited.com. Sign up for that free workshop like Kendra mentioned, and let's get you going.
Thank you for listening to Lifestyles Unlimited's Real Estate Investor Radio Show. Ready for more of the map? Visit lifestylesunlimited.com. Explore our videos and articles. Click on the radio tab to access past show podcasts. View the radio show schedule and listen to our best of radio shows. Want to continue the conversation? Follow Lifestyles Unlimited on Facebook today. We want to meet you as well. Sign up for a free workshop at lifestylesunlimited.com. Until next time, remember, it's not the money, it's the lifestyle.
The information and opinions you hear on the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show are those of the hosts, guests, and callers and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of this station, its affiliates, its management, or advertisers. The Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show is for entertainment purposes only. Please consult a professional regarding your personal investment needs. Nothing presented on the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show constitutes an endorsement, recommendation, offer, or solicitation to buy or sell any product or security.